There is a certain kind of quiet intensity in people born in the 1980s. Not loud, not dramatic, but always present. Like a low current running beneath everything they do. It shows up in how they think, how they carry responsibility, how they adapt without ever feeling fully settled. They often don't talk about it, but it's there. A feeling that life keeps moving faster, while they're still trying to hold on to something solid beneath their feet. If you look closely, you'll notice that people born in the 1980s carry a very specific emotional texture, one shaped by contradiction. They grew up at the edge of two worlds, childhood rooted in an analog rhythm, adulthood pulled into a digital one. They remember a time before constant connection, but they live in a world where disconnection feels almost impossible. And that tension shapes the way they see themselves, their relationships, their work, and their place in the world. Imagine being a child then. Time felt different, slower, less crowded. Days weren't filled with endless updates or notifications. If you were bored, you stayed bored. And in that boredom, something important happened. You learned how to be with yourself. You learned how to imagine, to reflect, to sit inside your own thoughts without needing to escape them. If you wanted to talk to someone, you called or you showed up. If you wanted to know something, you waited or you asked or you searched until you found it. That kind of waiting shaped patience in ways that are rare now. The psychology of people born in the 1980s is deeply shaped by that early slowness. Life wasn't lived in fragments, it unfolded in moments, and those moments left impressions. They learned that experiences had weight, that time mattered, that attention wasn't endless. So when you gave it, it meant something. Then the world changed, quietly at first, and then all at once. People born in the 1980s didn't just witness the rise of technology, they were reshaped by it. They learned how to type essays by hand and later by keyboard. They learned how to communicate face to face before learning how to do it through screens. They didn't grow up performing their lives. Privacy wasn't something you had to protect. It simply existed. And then gradually, it didn't. This is where a deep psychological contrast begins to form. On one side, there is an instinct for depth, privacy, and presence. On the other, a constant pressure to adapt, to stay visible, to keep up with a world that rewards speed over reflection. People born in the 1980s often live inside that contrast without fully naming it. They know how to adjust. They've been adjusting their entire lives. But adjustment doesn't always feel like belonging. Many of them learned emotional independence early, not because life was harsh, but because expectations were different. You were encouraged to handle things, to figure it out, to not make everything a big deal. Feelings were present, but they weren't always examined. You kept going. You stayed functional. You learned how to cope quietly. And over time, that quiet coping became part of who you are. This is why people born in the 1980s are often incredibly capable, but deeply tired. They know how to manage. They know how to show up. They know how to hold things together. But beneath that competence is a kind of emotional fatigue that doesn't always have an obvious source. It comes from years of adapting, years of recalibrating expectations, years of being told, implicitly, that flexibility is the price of survival. There's also the way they learn to relate to success. Growing up, success felt tangible. You worked towards something. You waited. You earned it. There was a sense that progress happened step by step. But adulthood brought a different message. Suddenly success looked louder, faster, more public. Timelines collapsed. Comparisons became constant. And people born in the 1980s found themselves caught between two definitions of a good life. One rooted in effort and stability, the other in visibility, and acceleration. That creates an inner pressure that's hard to articulate. They're ambitious, but not always in ways that fit the modern narrative. They want meaningful work, not just recognition, stability, not just growth, purpose, not just productivity. And when those things don't align, it can feel like they're always slightly behind, even when they're doing well. Relationships reflect this psychology too. People born in the 1980s learned connection in a world where presence mattered. Conversations happened without distractions. Attention was physical. Shared time meant shared focus. And because of that, they tend to value sincerity over performance. They notice effort. They trust consistency. They listen for tone, not just words. But they're also cautious. Trust for them is something built slowly. They've seen how quickly things can change, how easily connections can fade. So they don't rush. When they commit, it's intentional. When they care, it's deep. And when they're hurt, they often retreat inward rather than outward. Not because they don't feel, but because they feel too much to handle carelessly. Another defining trait is adaptability. People born in the 1980s have lived through repeated shifts, cultural, economic, technological. They've had to reinvent themselves more than once. Careers changed, expectations changed. The markers of adulthood kept moving. What once felt stable became uncertain. And through all of that, they kept going. But here's what's rarely talked about. That adaptability comes with a quiet grief, a sense of groundlessness. When the world keeps rewriting the rules, it becomes harder to know when you've arrived, harder to feel finished, harder to rest without guilt. Many people born in the 1980s carry the feeling that they're always in transition, even when they've built something meaningful. They also carry a strong sense of responsibility. They were raised to show up, to do their part, to take care of things. And when life becomes difficult, their instinct is often to endure rather than pause, to handle rather than ask. This makes them reliable, supportive, and steady. But it also makes rest feel undeserved, help feel uncomfortable, vulnerability feel like something that needs justification. This is where emotional suppression quietly enters. Not in obvious ways, but in subtle ones. They minimize their own exhaustion, they downplay their struggles, they tell themselves others have it worse. And over time, that habit creates distance from their own needs. They're excellent at supporting others, but often unsure how to receive the same care. Nostalgia plays a powerful role here, not because the past was perfect, but because it felt grounded. Life had texture. Experiences weren't endlessly repeatable. When something ended, it ended. When something mattered, it stayed with you. That contrast between the physical past and the digital present makes memories feel heavier, more emotionally charged. Nostalgia becomes a way to reconnect with a version of life that felt slower and more human. But it's not about wanting to go backward. People born in the 1980s don't want to reject progress. They understand its benefits. They've adapted to it. They live inside it. What they miss is not the era, but the feeling. Presence, continuity. The sense that time wasn't constantly slipping away. This also shapes how they experience uncertainty. They grew up learning that plans don't always work, that things change, that you adjust and move forward, that flexibility has value, and because of that, they tend to handle uncertainty better than they realise. They bend instead of breaking. They improvise. They find ways through, but again, there's a cost. Being adaptable often means not feeling rooted, not knowing when it's safe to stop adapting. Many people born in the 1980s struggle with the idea of arrival, of being done, of saying, this is enough. They keep preparing for the next shift, even when they're already standing on solid ground. Authenticity matters deeply to them. They grew up before life became curated, before identity became performance. They learned who people were by spending time with them, not by watching them. And because of that, they have a strong internal sense of what feels real. They're sensitive to inconsistency, to exaggeration, to surfaces without substance. This affects how they communicate. They value honesty, but not harshness. Depth, but not drama. They prefer conversations that feel grounded, where meaning isn't forced. They don't need constant affirmation. They need sincerity. And when they find it, they relax. When they don't, they withdraw. Gratitude runs quietly through their psychology. They didn't grow up expecting everything instantly, so appreciation came naturally. Small things mattered. They still do. Even now, moments of calm, connection, and understanding hold real weight. Gratitude isn't something they display. It's something they carry. And yet, beneath all of this, there's often an unspoken longing, a sense that something essential is slipping away. Not a specific thing, but a way of being, a desire for depth in a shallow world, for meaning in a noisy one. That longing doesn't make them bitter, it makes them reflective. It pushes them to seek out quieter spaces, slower rituals, more intentional connections. Identity is another area shaped by this journey. People born in the 1980s grew up with fewer conversations about self-definition. You were defined by what you did, how you contributed, how you behaved. Later in life, the language of identity expanded. Suddenly introspection became encouraged. Exploration became acceptable, and they had to integrate new self-awareness with older expectations. That process created depth. They didn't reinvent themselves overnight. They evolved slowly, thoughtfully. They learned how to hold multiple versions of themselves at once, who they were expected to be, and who they were becoming. That balancing act takes effort, but it also creates wisdom. They're deeply loyal. When they care, they commit. Not casually, not temporarily. They invest emotionally. And because of that, they protect their trust carefully. They open up when they feel safe. And when they do, they offer steadiness, patience, and understanding that runs deep. Their relationship with ambition is complex. They believe in effort, in showing up, in doing things properly. They don't chase shortcuts. They trust consistency. But they often underestimate their own resilience. They forget how much they've navigated, how many transitions they've survived. They downplay their strength because it never felt extraordinary to them. It was just life. They carry emotional memories strongly, not just of events, but of how those events felt. Those memories guide them, shape their values, influence how they love and how they lead. Memory becomes perspective. Perspective becomes calm. And when it comes to happiness, they understand something important. That it's often quiet, subtle, found in moments rather than milestones. They don't chase constant stimulation. They recognize contentment when it appears. They notice it. They sit with it. People born in the 1980s have been shaped by constant change. And yet, they've learned how to stay themselves through it. They've learned how to adapt without disappearing, how to move forward without letting go of what matters. That gives them a rare emotional balance, one that isn't perfect, but is grounded. They carry courage that doesn't announce itself, the kind that shows up in responsibility, in patience, in continuing when things are uncertain. And they understand imperfection, because they grew up in a world where things weren't polished, where mistakes were part of learning, where reality wasn't edited. That groundedness becomes a quiet anchor for others. People feel calmer around them, safer, more understood. They don't need to perform steadiness. They embody it. People born in the 1980s know that everything changes, but they also know that not everything needs to be rushed. They value presence. They value connection. They value depth. And as the world continues to speed up, they carry these values quietly, often without realizing how rare they've become. They are not stuck between worlds. They are shaped by both. They remember a slower life and navigate a faster one. They carry resilience tempered by reflection, strength softened by empathy. And that combination, imperfect, thoughtful, and deeply human, is what defines their psychology.